through this door lies another dimension. One of beeps, one of boops. A reality where 8-bit and HD clash. This is the point where new retro meet. The 6.5 dimension, protected by the arcade overlord. You have crossed into the turbo zone.
I love my SEGA Saturn. That's something that I say, that's something that everybody should say. Everybody should love their SEGA Saturn. And I know you all have one. And one of the best parts of owning a SEGA Saturn is the library of games. You have fantastic racing games, fantastic spaceship shooter games, and fantastic fighting games. Games like Virtua Fighter, Virtua Fighter 2, and Fighting Vipers. But one of the best fighting games, probably the best fighting game on the SEGA Saturn, comes in the form of Fighter's Megamix. Now, what exactly is Fighter's Megamix, you may be asking next, is a crossover between the Virtua Fighter games and the Fighting Vipers games, with some other characters like Janet from Virtual Cop 2, some of the guys from Sonic the Fighters, and a few random ones just thrown in here and there to spice it up a bit. Fighter's Megamix is one of the best games on Saturn, if not the best game on the console. It is such a solid fighting game.
Fight! Ready, go!
Now, I was already a fan of Virtua Fighter. I've played Virtua Fighter 3, 4, and 5 to pieces. The earlier games I never really had a chance to experience until now that I own a SEGA Saturn. So, getting a SEGA Saturn, I have Virtua Fighter 2, but I also got Fighter's Megamix here after seeing a glowing review over on Classic Game Room. Fun fact, Fighter's Megamix was actually the first game that I ever saw a review for from Classic Game Room. And Classic Game Room would go on to be one of my biggest inspirations. So this has links to that somehow. Fighter's Megamix is really, really impressive. There is a huge roster of fighters in this game. You have pretty much all the characters from Virtua Fighter and Fighting Vipers, and then, like I said, you have other characters thrown in from Sega, from the what's the team? Sega AM2, I believe that's the team. You have like Janet from Virtual Cop. You have the two of the Virtua Fighter kids. You have Rent-A-Hero. You have Bean and Bark from Sonic the Fighters. You even have the car from Daytona, USA. Yes, you can play as the fucking car from Daytona, USA. How do you not have this game in your library?
Fight! Ready, go!
If you never played Virtual Fighter before, it's a pretty basic 3-button fighter. You have a punch button, kick button, and block button. Kind of plays like rock, paper, scissors in a way. What's cool about this game is that where I am a fan of Virtua Fighter, I can keep the physics on Virtua Fighter, or if you like Fighting Vipers, you can kind of change the playstyle over to Fighting Vipers, which has a more aggressive playstyle. It's really cool, because Fighting Vipers is also a really cool game. It's really cool to have a choice to really switch between which game you want to play.
Fight! Ready, go!
Obviously, this game is probably only going to really appeal to SEGA fans who know the Virtua Fighter or Fighting Viper franchises. But even if you've only played one Virtua Fighter game, if you enjoyed it, this is the game to get. Like, if you're looking to get a Saturn, this is the game to get. It has so much to offer. It is such a good fighting game. Like I said, it's probably the best game on the console. Not the best, but probably my favorite game on the console. Let me rephrase that. This is probably my favorite game on the SEGA Saturn. The music has that Sega 90s cheese to it that I love so much. And while the game, yes, doesn't look as good as a game on the PS1 or the N64, it still looks pretty damn good for a Sega Saturn 3D fighting game. There's an arcade mode, there's a team survival mode, there's a survival mode. The game has a lot to offer in terms of multiplayer and single-player content. If you're a fan of fighting games, this should not leave you bored.
Fight! Ready, go!
The only problem I have here with Fighters Megamix probably comes with the name, Fighters Megamix. They could have came up with such a way better name, like Virtua Fighter Cross Fighting Vipers or Virtual Vipers. I like Virtual Vipers, but Fighters Megamix makes this game kind of sound generic. Like, the first time I heard Fighters Megamix, I was like, that doesn't sound too fun. And then I looked and see what it was, and it's the total opposite of the name. If you're going off the name alone, Fighters Megamix sounds kind of lousy, but the game is superb. So yeah, if you're new to collecting for the Saturn, or if you have an old Saturn laying around and you want to dust it off, and you don't have this game, this is a great choice. It won't run you that much. A North American copy in box goes for like $30 at most. You can get it loose, the disc loose. If you're not into collecting, you can just get the disc for way cheaper, or you can import the Japanese version for like $15, and you can play that using the action replay cart. Thank you. So there's all kinds of ways to get your hands on this beautiful game here. Fighters Megamix is highly recommended, highly recommended, and I'm not just saying that because I am a fanboy of the Sega Saturn and Sega, and also I'm a fighter myself. This is fighter approved. Fucking going out there busting people in the face, fucking mixing it up. I'm a fighter. You're a fighter. Fighters Megamix.
Hey geeks and gamers, TurboBot90013 here. Remember to subscribe to the Turbo Zone for more content. The Arcade Overlord, thank you. Stay retro. Turbo Zone.